And in his interview with Yoon Suk Yeol, the Prime Minister said addressing global challenges through coordinated cooperation of G7 and G20, demonstrating determination to lead the international community. And joining me is to take us through this, his interview and how day 2 kick-started at the G7 summit. Joining me on the broadcast is my senior executive editor, Abhishek Kapoor. Abhishek, if you could take our viewers through the major takeaways. It's still early in the day, but for India, lots has already been accomplished. Over to you.
Oh, you are absolutely right, Rukma. Prime Minister has already unveiled the bust of Mahatma Gandhi, the father of the nation, at the site near the nuclear bombing site in Hiroshima. Remember, it was the first time the nuclear bomb was used in the Second World War. It was in Hiroshima by the United States, apart from Nagasaki. And Mahatma Gandhi, at that time alive, was really disturbed at this new development. He said non-violence is the only antidote. Nuclear bombs response is not more nuclear bombs, and that's really gained salience in the symbolic manner in which the G7 summit is being held at Hiroshima by Prime Minister Kishida as chair of G7 this year. Remember, Prime Minister Kishida is also from it's his home district, home constituency, and that's the important aspect. Now, remember, there is this talk of pressing the pedal again on CTBT and NPT and whatnot. We have seen a lot of nuclear saber rattling happening over the last 1 year in the backdrop of the Europe war. We have seen Chinese modernizing their nuclear weaponry, increasing the numbers. And in that sense, for the Prime Minister to be giving an interview and making it clear that India is still willing to commit itself for a nuclear-free world and coordinate with everyone else. Japan, of course, has been at the forefront of demanding that the world become nuclear-free. So, of course, that kind of mechanism has never been put in place. In fact, instruments like the NPT and the CTBT are very discriminatory and unequal and seek to sustain and keep nuclear weapons with those nations that developed them before the signing of these treaties. India, of course, still went ahead and carried out its nuclear tests, which were called peaceful nuclear tests in self-defense. But then Prime Minister, using a media platform in Japan while in Hiroshima and suggesting that India is absolutely ready to collaborate and coordinate with the world for having no nuclear weapons is a big statement coming in from Prime Minister Narendra Modi from a world platform.
And Abhishek, when we talk about, just a short while back, we heard about his interview with Yoon Suk Yeol. If you could take us through the points that he stressed upon, the points from our perspective, from India's perspective, as the chair of the G20, what would be the points that you would highlight of that interview?
So it's significant that Prime Minister did the second interview in less than 24 hours to a Japanese media platform. Remember the first one in which in the Nikkei Asia online platform newspaper, Prime Minister News Online. Prime Minister had mentioned how India is more than willing to go more than half a mile, and if both China and Pakistan, and he named them because the questions were asked, are willing to respect their part of the deal, respect territorial integrity and sovereignty, not indulge in terror. And now, in fact, in this interview, and it's very significant, when Prime Minister is asked about the Ukraine war, for example, Prime Minister said that India advocates dialogue and diplomacy to resolve disputes, and essentially reiterating that war is no solution to what's happening in Ukraine. And also, Prime Minister, when specifically asked on our standoff with China and increasing Chinese military expansionism in the South China Sea and the East China Sea, and the rise in the tensions in Taiwan Strait, Prime Minister has said that there is a model which China can follow, the Bangladesh-India model, where India has solved all its land boundary and maritime boundary disputes with a smaller neighbor. I mean, I think the Prime Minister Modi is holding a mirror to Chinese in the manner in which these things can be achieved. Remember, of all countries, the Chinese have the brazenness to really pick a fight with the Bhutanese, the small nation, Himalayan kingdom of Bhutan. How brazen can you get and how stupid can you get when you are picking up a fight with a small, tiny country like Bhutan? So, and the Chinese have problems with Vietnam, with Indonesia, with Laos, with Taiwan, with Japan, with Korea, South Korea. With every nation they have maritime disputes. They struggle. They are solving their boundary dispute with Mongolia, and there in fact is a boundary problem between China and Russia as well. So there is a model which the Prime Minister has posited, which is how India went and sorted out its problems, land boundary problems with Bangladesh, even exchanging land enclaves to the benefit of Bangladesh. And thus, there are no border disputes anymore between India and Bangladesh, both at the land and the maritime boundary. So I think Prime Minister there, using an international platform and media organizations in Japan to really present a picture of India as a very responsible member of the Committee of Nations, both on the issue of nuclear armament, where Prime Minister has stated very clearly that India is more than willing to have a nuclear-free world, and the world has to really agree to that. And he's willing to work with Prime Minister Kishida of Japan to move in that direction. And on the Chinese expansionism and belligerence, a model has been presented, that of India vis-a-vis Bangladesh. The Chinese are willing to listen.
Short while back, Abhishek, we just heard, we just saw those visuals of, there's yet to be a press statement, I think, of his bilateral meeting with the Korean delegation, with the Korean head of state. Well, India and South Korea, where do they stand at this point? We have had very strong relationships, but the G7 meeting and perhaps this bilateral meeting on the sidelines, how would you look at it as an opportunity to further those ties with South Korea, for example?
Well, Rukma, Prime Minister's meeting with Prime Minister of Japan, Fumio Kishida, has just happened. This was the first of the bilaterals that Prime Minister had after unveiling the bust of Mahatma Gandhi in the presence of Mayor of Hiroshima. In fact, with Prime Minister Kishida, this is the second meeting in this year, because remember, just about a month back, Prime Minister Kishida was in Delhi for the annual India-Japan summit, and you had those pictures of the two leaders having a one-on-one, even trying Golgappas at the Buddha Garden in Delhi. And Prime Minister, in the meeting that has taken place just a while back, the pictures of which must be on air, Prime Minister thanked Prime Minister Kishida for planting in Hiroshima the Bodhi sapling that had been gifted by Prime Minister Modi in March 2023. So remember, when Prime Minister Kishida was in Delhi, he was gifted a Bodhi tree, and that has been planted in Hiroshima on Hiroshima Day. And as I mentioned, Hiroshima is Prime Minister Kishida's hometown and constituency, and the two leaders then discussed ways to synergize efforts between G7, of which Japan is president, and G20, of which India is president, and the concerns exchanged about what's happening really around the world and what the two nations and the two groupings can do after coming together. And contemporary regional developments, specifically the Indo-Pacific, and on issues like climate change and the ways to address the issue of climate change through lifestyle for environment, which is a slogan given by Prime Minister, and green hydrogen technology, semiconductors. Remember, India and Japan are also part of the Quad, and in the evening today, 8 p.m. Japan time, which is roughly going to be about 4:30 p.m. India time,